Hi, my name is Noel Davis with World Composting, and today we're going to take a look at our urban worm bag that has the European night crawlers in it. Now, after my last video where I went into my African night crawler bag and I realized that almost all the worms, though I should say that all the worms were gone. There were no worms left in the bag. I didn't search for cocoons really, but I also realized that African night crawler cocoons are not those bright yellow ones. They look a little bit more brownish, so I might have missed them. But I did add some more African night crawlers to that system, and it kind of got me worried about my European night crawler system. It's been a couple months since I checked on it, or maybe just under a couple months. And this is the only system I have that has European night crawlers in it. Now, they've been a lot more robust as far as their ability to take temperature changes and humidity, whereas my African night crawlers are a lot more specific. They really like that high humidity, and they like that high heat. So I'm hoping that there's worms still left in here. I know that it's been less time than my other system, so I'm hoping that they're still looking good. But we're going to go ahead and add some food. We're going to add some of our charcoal that's been saturated with water and sort of broken up a little bit to turn it into biochar, and of course some paper as well. So with that, let's go take a look at the system and see how it's going. All right, here is our urban worm bag, and as I said, it's been I think just over a month or 2 months since I last checked on this system. I have been adding a lot of food. Now let's just take a look here. First off, again, we can see the top is very, very dry. We actually have worms crawling into this. This is not good. They're crawling into the, let's see if you can see that there. They're crawling into the bag that has, or this has vinegar in it. So I'm surprised that they're crawling in there, but we're going to go ahead and leave that alone on the side. We've got some worms underneath there. That's a good sign. We do have worms in here. They do need some moisture. I'm going to put on my glove here. This glove does have some, I was just grinding up the charcoal that I had and adding water to it, so there's some of that on there. We're going to go ahead and just uncover this top section here and just take a look real quick and see how they're doing. So first off, we do have some peels left in here. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. There we go. So we do have some peels left in here. Lots of material left on the top. Full avocado seed. Look at that. You can see this is just going to break apart though in my hands, which is good. That way it'll break down. But you can see this material just looks absolutely terrific. Do have some corn on the cob that's left as well, but there's tons of worms in here on the surface. A little hard to dig in here. Oh, I hit a, I was gonna say, I felt a little hard. It's because I hit a mango seed in here. That's why it was so hard to dig in at first. But you can see there's worms on it. So there's food in here. There's moisture. We've got, the worms are a little bit small looking for European night crawlers, but they're still healthy in here. There's still plenty of them in here. So I'm not as worried now about the system as I was before I opened it up. There's still a lot of movement in here. You can see as I break this apart, more worms inside. So they're all through this system. We're just going to break open this surface area a little bit, kind of get rid of some of the compaction that's going on. Just kind of get a feel for the system a little bit, to get a look. A lot of worms over here in this corner where the container was. All right, so this system's not having nearly as many issues as the other one is, and you can see over here got a bunch of worms. So they're doing really good in this system still. So all right, we're going to just kind of bury this around in here. We're going to move this to the other side. We'll take a look at this other side. Now I've been adding charcoal to the system. This is my homemade charcoal that I've been making. This one, it's really kind of a very firm piece. It's not breaking apart. Maybe it's a little undercooked, but I'm just going to leave those in there. We're going to let those continue to they're not going to break down probably, but they're going to continue to help enhance the system and hopefully gain some of those good nutrients for when I throw this stuff in the garden or in my yard. This one right here, you can see this piece of charcoal from the last batch is breaking apart pretty well. Now, one of the things I've changed up is the fact I'm trying to break up the charcoal before I put it in here rather than throwing it in full chunks. So that way it can be broken down by the worms. Or I shouldn't say broken down, but they can help put nutrients into these chunks. Here's another mango seed in here. This one must have been on top. It's a little bit dried out on one side. We can break that open, let the worms get in there, get that seed inside. There we go. Nice soft seed in there, the hard outer shell. This will break down though. Remember, these shells will break down in here, but it's a little bit tough for them to get inside. And once they get inside and start working out from both sides, they can really dig through them. And you get something like this. This is part of also a seed as well, it looks like. And as you can see, it's breaking apart. So let's just dig over here. Again, we're breaking up some of this compaction on top. This probably does need a harvest. I'm not going to harvest today, but we're just going to kind of break apart this top couple inches right here just to make sure that there's some air movement and water movement through the system as we add more to it. So there we go. You can see we've got these big chunks of compact material. The material looks pretty good. And I do like the fact that it just sort of crumbles apart in your hands. Could look a little bit nicer maybe, but it's pretty good. Now this is a white worm. That is not normally what I see. Oh, there we go. Can you see that now? So that is probably a, I can't think of the worms, but those are not babies. Those are not baby worms. They are pot worms. There we go. So they're not baby European night crawlers. If I had to guess, they're probably pot worms. And all right, so we've kind of mixed these in a little bit, get them to work through more of this cardboard as we mix it in the material, and then we're going to go ahead and get some new stuff in here. So there we go. There's a little bit of food left, but not a whole lot, especially this tougher stuff. This stuff, avocado skin, just takes a while to break down. But we're going to put in some really good food that they're going to like, and what is that? Watermelon. But the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to add some of our charcoal. And for those of you curious, it's charcoal first, and then when you get it inoculated with good bacteria and nutrients and things, then it's biochar. But until you do that, it's just charcoal. So as you can see, I'm just going to spread this around on here. Just scrape this out a little bit. There we go. So this is sort of my latest thing. And I'm doing this because I have a lot of woody materials now in my yard that are starting to grow where I need to cut them back, and I feel guilty just throwing them out. This kind of lets me do this where I'm adding them to my system because I don't have a compost pile to really throw them in, but it allows me to enter it back into the soil. And what I've been doing is I have a video that I've done before of me actually burning the material in a container, and that way I can make sure that it's burned fully, or burn most of the way I should say, because it's hard unless I break it all apart. But that allows me to add it to the soil, and that should last in the soil. When you put biochar in the ground, it should last a long time in your soil. I think between 3 and 1,000 years, depending on how well you cooked it and how much of the how much is just carbon left over. So that's why I've been doing that. I've been using containers to do that. Next thing is I am going to throw in a little bit of cardboard here that's dry, and this is just to protect the worms because I'm going to throw in some frozen watermelon. One of their favorite foods is watermelon. Has a lot of moisture content in it. And we're just going to go ahead and throw a big thing of watermelon in here. But first off, I'm going to just slam it on the side here to try to loosen it. Look at that. It's still frozen together pretty well, even though it's been sitting over here for a while. I dropped a piece on the ground here. There we go. It's been sitting really for a while. Hopefully I didn't get any worms with that. But there we go. Just try to break this down a little bit. It's been sitting for probably a half an hour, but it's still so frozen that it didn't thaw out. Just kind of break it apart a little bit. But this will dissolve pretty quickly in here because it's mainly water, which is why they call it watermelon. And this bin needs some moisture, although it's not too bad. It's not as bad as my African nightcrawler system was. That was really dried out. As I said, though, they're a little bit more picky, I feel, than some of the other worms I have. So if you're looking to get into this, I wouldn't recommend starting with African nightcrawlers. I highly recommend still starting with red worms, your standard compost worms, and not going for these other more exotic, I don't want to say exotic, but more difficult or more temperamental versions of some of these composting worms. There we go. We broke this apart. There we go. And we can still have this kind of in a pile here. As I said, this is going to break down pretty quickly. One thing I am going to do here is I'm just going to spray it with some water. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because I want to spray off my gloves, but also just kind of get some water flowing through these. This water is a little bit warm since it's been sitting in my basement. It's warmer in my basement than it was in the freezer, obviously. We'll see if that glosses over or not. But there we go, just a little bit of water on there. And now what we can do is actually, hold on, I'm going to throw on, I still have here some pine shavings left over from when I had a hamster and we bought pine shavings and then found out we're not supposed to use them. This is going to add just a little bit of hate to say grit, but it's going to add a little bit of texture to the system. It kind of changes up the texture a little bit. But with grit, that's the next thing I'm going to add. And I do have a mask here. I'm putting on an N95 mask. I'm going to be a little bit more muffled. We need to add some crushed crab and eggshell. So I'm going to get my mask on right first. Make sure. You don't want to breathe this stuff in. I know people are like, oh, it's all natural. It's good. Radon's also natural. That's really bad for you. It causes cancer. This stuff will destroy your lungs if you're breathing it in, this dust. So I'm going to put a lot on because we would need a whole bunch. And that it just had water sprayed on, so hopefully it's going to kind of stick to that as well. Now with that, the last thing I'm putting in here is, of course, some paper to cover all this up. And this is pre-soaked paper. I have water in this container. Some of it might not have gotten wet, it looks like, but I did have it soaking for a while. You can hear the water coming out of it. There we go. Let me just scrape all the stuff out of here. And we just kind of move this around, kind of cover everything up. Just like that. And this is a standard kind of feeding that I do. The big thing that I added was the charcoal, which I have added a couple times. But there we go. That's a nice big feeding for the worms. Nice good amount of paper on top. Oh, one more thing. We're going to put this fruit fly trap back on here. I was really shocked to see some of the worms crawling in there. As I said, that's vinegar in there. To kind of get those fruit flies to fly in there. So it's vinegar with a dash of soap and some water. And it's apple cider vinegar, I should say, not just regular vinegar, apple cider vinegar. So if any fruit flies get in here, they go in there. And as you can tell, there was no fruit flies that I really saw. So this system looks pretty good. And we're going to go ahead and close this up again. Now with that, I do need to do a harvest on this system. And we might maybe next time come back and I might maybe get ready to do a harvest. And that harvest material will just go right into my yard, even though it's getting cold outside. Add it right into the yard, no problem, and just have it dissolve into the soil. So with that, thank you for watching. I'm glad to see that this system is doing a little bit better than the other one as far as, I think primarily because of the type of worms in here. These worms are just a lot more robust than the African night crawlers for this type of temperatures. But that's it for my update, and thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below.